Hello, you guys. I feel hurt that some of these relationship coaches seem to blame the woman for a marriage not working out, as if the woman alone could ensure her relationship is happy. And I'm going to mention some people that I follow whose work I really like, but I feel like they're neglecting my needs, and they're not talking to the pain that I felt in my marriage, because honestly, I didn't want to divorce him. I don't have feelings for him, but I still have feelings towards the concept of marriage and family and relationship, and I didn't want to divorce him. I just divorced him because I couldn't bear to live with someone who was causing me all that pain and who was neglecting me sexually so much. In a moment of clarity, I loved myself more than I needed him, and out of loving myself, I made that decision to leave. But I didn't want to. I didn't plan out my divorce. It took me by surprise. If you read my book, What I Did for Sex, in the opening chapter, I talk about the night I left him. We had dinner together and he massaged my feet and I snuggled up against him. And that night what he said to me, I just, suddenly something inside of me, instead of longing for him and crying and being sad, something inside of me, this inner voice, talked to me and told me to love myself. And I walked out of the bedroom and I never wanted him again after that. It was like a counselor later told me, it was, like he had frayed the rug, frayed it over and over. And that night was just the last thread that he broke. Because I couldn't understand how I went from being in love with him to not wanting him anymore. But when I listen to these relationship coaches, and I really love their work, I just feel like they're just not addressing that at all. So let's get into it. First of all, if you're having coffee, good morning. If you're watching this in the evening, pour yourself a glass of wine. Let's have some girl talk. And of course, the men are welcome here too. I'm speaking to both men and women. And this is kind of what the point of this video is. It seems like so many of the coaches are talking just to the woman and blaming or giving the woman power over what she can do without holding the man accountable. And both men and women are accountable to making a relationship work. And when they're speaking only to the woman, I feel hurt and not heard, because they're making it sound like if I just do the right thing, I will have a happy relationship. And I tried doing all the right things. I tried all the right things. I wanted to go to counseling. I was being really sweet. He never told me what I should do differently. He didn't want to change anything. He wasn't abusive, alcoholic, or mentally ill, or any of these things that you say you should never work with these guys. He was just a regular nice guy who didn't want to work on anything. So let's get into it. So first of all, we have Dr. John Gray. I love John Gray's work. This is one of his many books, which I've read, Mars and Venus and the Bedroom. His books go back to the 90s. He writes about research on the biological differences between men and women. We both have bodies, but we're very different aside from our genitals. Our minds, our emotions, our hormones, the way we respond and what we need is very different. And this one is about the sexual parts. Even sexually, men get hard very quickly. Women need more time to warm up. Men use sex to feel connected. Women need to feel connected to want sex, and so on. So I love what he does. I also listen to his YouTube videos and the interviews he does on some YouTube channels. He was married for over 30 years to a second wife, Bonnie, who passed away 2 years ago of cancer. He talks a lot about dealing with her loss, how to deal with emotions and feelings, which is from his earliest work. And he's very authentic and open. And one of the questions that someone had asked him, by the way, the comments are off on all of his YouTube channels, which is kind of interesting, but which is why I decided to turn mine on. I'm like, he seems very defensive. I don't want to be that defensive, but I also like him because he was a Purusha for Maharishi for 9 years, and I also practiced transcendental meditation, so he was a monk for many years. And he talks about sex, so I think he's super cool. One of the questions someone asked him was why he only gives advice and tells women what to do. And he replied, well, that's because I'm speaking to women. If I were speaking to men, I would tell them da. And he does occasionally in his book mention what men ought to do, but not that often and not in his talks. And what I would say to Dr. Gray, if he's watching this, which I know he isn't, but I'm a big believer in only say about people what you would say to their face. I would say, Dr. Gray, I'm such a fan of your work. I just love how you have really helped me understand the differences between men and women and understand men better. And when you speak and you speak just to women, I feel some pain and some part of me that's unheard because it sounds like I'm just being blamed for everything that's not happening. And I wish that in every talk that you give, that you would just, out of your hour talks, just spend 3 minutes saying what is the man's responsibility in the relationship and what the man ought to do, so that one, I don't blame myself for everything, and two, that I have a sense of what to expect from a man and what a healthy man would do in a relationship. And that would make me feel so much more whole. Because when you tell me what to do as a woman, it's just one more thing making me wrong. It's just one more way that I can blame myself, because I do blame myself. When my relationship isn't good, I either blame him or I blame me. And so I wish that you would, in every talk, just also say what the man's role is. You know, now he is a relationship person. He's a man's point of view on relationships. Now we also have women who talk about the anti-feminist women. I'm a big believer in that. I don't believe that women should work full time. I don't believe that children should be scuttled off to daycare. And I've made videos about that. And recently I've come across Suzanne Banker on YouTube. I've watched so many of her videos, listened to her podcasts, and I just recently ordered her book. And I love what she has to teach women about being women in the relationship. However, she also just talks to women as if we are the only ones responsible for a relationship working or not working. And that if we just are feminine enough and we're not alpha in the relationship, if we have a we mindset instead of an individual me mindset, we're pretty much divorce proof, provided we're not married to someone who is alcoholic, mentally ill, or abusive. And again, I feel like she is on a little, I would say, Mrs. Banker, I love the work that you're doing and teaching women how to be women and nurture our children and follow our natural instincts to be nourishing and to be mothers. And I envy you for having a marriage that still seems to be working for you when mine wasn't. However, I think there's a little bit of good fortune that you had in that. There are relationships that aren't working despite women not being married to someone who is abusive, mentally ill, or alcoholic, and the woman being in her feminine energy, because the man has a role to play in the relationship too. And I would love to hear you talk about the man's responsibility in the relationship to making it divorce proof. The man definitely has a responsibility too. That's what I would say to her. And then I would like to mention that she had a recent podcast where she was interviewing, I think it was Bettina Ritter. And that person, that researcher or scientist had studied 95 couples over a period of 1 year, documenting their sex lives and their intimacy. And, you know, the idea that these women have, that all these people have, and I agree, is that we should definitely keep having sex with our men. We need to keep having sex with our men. And in this study, it found that a lot of women referred to their men as, you know, he's always groping me. You know, I walk by and he's groping me, and like they're disgusted by the men groping them. But they don't talk about why it feels groping. And I can tell you why. I, in my book, talk about feeling groped. It's because if a man's only touching me to put his dick in me, he's only touching me when he wants to slide it in. He's not touching me. He doesn't hold my hand. He doesn't take me on dates. He's only touching me to slide it in. That's not very attractive. Or he only gives me, he doesn't take me on dates, or the sex we're having is so dissatisfying to me. It's quick. It ignores my pleasure. He doesn't care if I come. It's in some way unpleasant, and he doesn't care. The sex is bad. Then women don't want the sex. But neither one of these people talks about that the man has to keep taking the woman out, touch her other than when he's wanting to slide it in, and that he has to make sure she enjoys the sex. Otherwise, it does feel gropey, and we don't want the sex. I want to hear someone talk about that. Then there's also another person whose videos I like. I like the guy Entrepreneurs in Cars. He's really good at teaching men to be alpha men and not to be beta men and doormats to women. That's unattractive. He teaches men to pursue their excellence, which is very good. He does point out to men the unfairness in the family court system, where men lose custody and a lot of their money when women get divorced. Like, women have all the power, which is unfair to men. And I like that he talks on behalf of men and that he's a mentor to men. But in his videos, I don't hear him talking about, you got to take your woman out. You have to make sure she enjoys the sex. You have to give her attention. He doesn't talk about that. You know, he's a man talking to men without addressing what has to be done for women. And these other two are talking to women. Again, none of them are talking about what the man has to do in the relationship. And I firmly believe that, now I never cheated on my husband with men, but I cheated mentally. I thought about having sex with other people because he neglected me. And then ultimately I turned to Vicodin because he neglected me. You cannot neglect your partner. You can't ignore your partner when your partner is saying, hey, remember me? Let's go on a date. Let's go on a trip. And you keep saying no. I think those are the women who cheat. You blame the woman for cheating. Now, I'm not saying cheating is okay. I didn't cheat, but I think the reason that women cheat is because they're neglected. I don't think that women, I think that people think about having sex with other people because I don't think that we're naturally monogamous. I think we have those thoughts. But a healthy person who values their relationship and who values a peaceful life isn't going to want the drama of an affair. I don't think so. It would take a lot for someone to cheat and take the risk of getting an STD, take the risk of being found out. A person has to be in a lot of pain to make that decision to cheat. It's not as simple as all women are cheaters. You know, if it's a healthy woman, she's only going to cheat if she's neglected. So at the same time, I think it's so, what I want to say is that when people make videos about relationships, I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard. I think that every time we talk about relationships, we have to speak to the man's responsibility and the woman's responsibility, not just to one side. Because when I speak to only one side, the other side is going to feel neglected or blamed or completely rudderless. Like, what am I supposed to expect? So for example, if I only make a video telling men what they're doing wrong in their relationship, men are going to feel blamed, and they're going to think, what about the woman's responsibility? Or they might even think, what is the woman's responsibility? What should I expect of a woman? What are my reasonable expectations of how I should be treated? So let me just end with that. How I think a man should be treated in a relationship. I think that a man deserves to be loved, heard, fucked, appreciated, respected. I think a man ought to have a safe, nourishing home to come home to, that his children respect him, that his woman respects him and admires him. I think that a man ought to have a space to get away, to have his downtime, to go out with the boys, that his interests, that he ought to have like safe, independent space to pursue his own interests, to have his own private time, to have his own money. They talk about how you should mingle your money and all that. You can have joint accounts, but everyone should have their own money to do what they want. You got to have like your own space, physical space, financial space, emotional space, so that you can still have your identity to be a man. And I think that you ought to have sex and feel desired. And if the relationship isn't going well, I think that you as the man ought to definitely hold your woman accountable, speak to her about it, and get therapy or counseling and get some help. That you definitely have the right to lead in the relationship, to say no when you mean no, to have your no's respected, to not be yelled at or criticized or used as a financial provider, to feel loved. Definitely. And if those things aren't happening, and sometimes those things don't happen over the course of a relationship because people can get resentful, to say, I want to get some help for our relationship, I want to improve it, to take that lead, and that your woman will join you in that effort. That's what I think a man deserves. A safe space to come home to. And if it's not a safe space, that you tell the woman, I need something more, I would like to improve our relationship, let's go talk to someone, and that she agrees to it. That's what you deserve. That she wants to have a good relationship with you. That you feel sexually wanted and sexually pleased and sexually appreciated. And that you have the ability to meet her needs as a woman. And if you don't, that you're also willing to find out what she needs. That's what I think. That's what I think. And that you have a safe space to express things, and that if you think your woman has gained too much weight and you no longer find her attractive, that you have a safe space to say that. That you don't have to hide how you feel or become resentful because certain things are not okay to say, because those things kill a relationship. I think you have the right that your woman, however attractive she was when she first caught you, that she keeps being that attractive and that interested in you, and that she makes herself beautiful for you and enjoys making herself beautiful for you. And if she no longer does, that she's willing to find out why she doesn't. That's what I think a man deserves. I don't pretend to know how to make that happen. If a woman has lost interest in you, or she's gained weight and she doesn't want to have sex anymore, I don't know how to have her get that back. That's why I think counseling is really important. I think more people should go to counseling and find a good counselor. Again, I don't know how to find a good counselor, but I'm just saying about the ideal and what you deserve. And I think every woman deserves a man who listens to her talk, who touches her, not just when he wants to fuck, who is good in bed, and who's willing to step up his game and always be at his best, because he works out and he takes time for his friends and he pursues his passions and he's a man of excellence. So he's as hot and desirable today as he was when she met him, because that's the kind of man he wants to be. A relationship is not a thing you can just like, I have my partner, I can let go, because there's no attraction there and there's no hotness there. You know, a relationship is like a garden. I mean, I think we're like gardens. We have to keep watering and pruning the plants to be our best version of ourselves, and then that we bring that into the relationship. So I think both people have a part to play. And when I hear people talking just to women, whether it's a man or a woman, or men just talking to men and not addressing what they need to do, you know, I feel hurt and I feel unheard. And I'm going to be okay with just saying that. And thank you for watching my video.